Hello, we're going to do a 7-minute purpose of the Torah from Friday's lecture. Amazon, set a 7-minute timer.
7 minutes, starting now.
The heart of the Old Testament is the story of the land and the seed, and I would add to that the presence of God. Talk about the seed, we're talking about the seed of the woman will crush the snake's head. We talk about the land, we're talking first about Eden, and then the exile, and then God gives them Canaan, and then God exiles them from Canaan, and the rest of the Old Testament tells the story of Israel in the land. And the land becomes a really important theme. Let's make this a little smaller. It's a really important theme. This idea of the people, that's where the seed comes from, and then the land. And the people are holy because they belong to God. The land is holy because the land belongs to God. And the land never belonged to Israel, by the way. It was always God's possession. God set aside Jerusalem as the place where his presence would dwell. And that's really important because the whole purpose of the land is to be the place where God's presence would dwell, where all of the earth could come to that place and they could meet with God's presence. So the people dwell in the land in the presence of God. And God gave them the land, sort of not quite like rental land, but a little bit like rental land, because it still is God's land, not theirs. But he gave them the land as long as they obeyed what they call the covenant stipulations. Those are the rules which God set up for the Israelites to obey that would guarantee that they could stay in the land. God's covenant, it promised blessings, but here's what you've got to get. The blessings came only in the land, not out here, in the land. And God's covenant contained warnings that if they disobeyed the covenant stipulations, that the land would spit them out. So God's presence is in the land, and God's blessings are in the land. So God made a covenant that they would become a special people. And remember again, God's presence is there, and the land is where God's blessing comes. And the covenant stipulations are the boundaries, as you have to stay within these covenant stipulations. They say these are the ordinances, and the ordinances, it means the rules, and the stipulation is just simply rules. If you obey these rules, you can stay in the land. If you disobey these rules, you can't stay in the land. That's why the law is not salvation giving, because it's about land staying in. So the law very clearly says this is what's going to happen if you go outside the boundaries of the law. You are going to be exiled. And when you're outside of the land, you're cursed. You're apart from God's blessings. There is no blessing in Babylon. There is no blessing in Egypt. You can't be blessed there. Why? Because you're outside of the land. And so you can see that here they're under the curse. Here they're under the curse. Where was the curse? The curse was actually in the law. The law said, this is what's going to happen to you if you keep the covenant boundaries. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't. As I already said, these covenant stipulations never offer eternal life. They offer blessings in the land, curses outside of the land. When it says, see, I've set before you life and prosperity, death and adversity, Christians read this and assume this is talking about eternal life. But look at what he says here. So that you may live and multiply and the Lord may bless you in the land. It's not about eternal life. It's about blessing in the land. If your heart turns away, you do not listen, you're led astray to bow down to other gods and worship them, I tell you that you will certainly perish, and you will not live long in the land. So what's very important for us to understand is that this whole concept of these covenant stipulations, these laws that we read about in the Torah, that is for the Israelites to stay in the land of Canaan, where God's going to bless them. So the Torah does not talk or offer eternal life. The laws in the Torah are about living life in the land. However, having said that, the Torah does have promises, and the promises are about the Messiah. And so in the Torah, Abraham is saved because Abraham believes God, and God counts it to him as righteousness. In the Torah, Moses is saved because Moses believes the promises. Moses is not saved because he obeys the law. He does obey the law pretty much. He does obey the law, but that's not what saves him, because the law doesn't bring salvation. The law brings the right to remain in the land. And so we don't want to think in terms of salvation, because that's not what the law is thinking in terms of. There is salvation. There's most certainly salvation. The salvation that is offered in the law is that salvation, which is that salvation of faith in the promises of the Messiah. That's where salvation comes. It always comes from the same place. Hebrews love the law, they obey the law, they observe the law, but that's because the law keeps them in the land. So, conclusion. So I hope this has been helpful. This is what I really need you to grasp and understand, so that you can understand what this is all about. And I hope that you will be able to really grasp this and put it into practice.